Welcome to the Draft Reaction Show, part 2, brought to you by Crestron. The Giants trade back into the first round, and they select Jaxson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss, with the 25th pick in round number 1 in a trade with the Houston Texans. Hello, everybody. I am John Schmeelk, joined again by Paul Dottino and Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara. We'll take your calls at 201-939-4513 if you want to get on the phones and react to the Giants' selection of Jaxson Dart. Of course, at 3rd overall, they selected Abdul Carter a bit earlier in the draft. Now, the details of the trade first. In order to move and get this selection, the Giants traded their 2nd-round pick, which was pick 34 overall, their 2nd, 3rd-round pick, that was the compensatory pick that they got for losing the combination of Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley in last offseason, whichever of those guys was not canceled out. That was pick 99, and they also had to send a 3rd-round pick in the 2026 NFL draft, next year's draft. So it was a 3-for-1 trade, but they move up with the Houston Texans to 25 and select Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. I'll go through some of the numbers, but first, Shaun, your reaction.
I feel like this was destiny. Hasn't Jaxson Dart kind of been, this has been in the works, I feel like, for so long now. Everybody's been talking about it. There's been whispers. There's obvious connections there with him playing in Ole Miss and Eli being in Ole Miss. I think when you look at Jaxson Dart, he fits Brian Daboll's offense to a T. And what he did down in Ole Miss, look, it was a very quarterback-friendly, pass-frenzied offense, but it also had a lot of RPOs in it. Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator, and Lane Kiffin, the head coach there. Look, this offense was obviously built around Jaxson Dart, but I think a lot of the things he did that with Ole Miss are some of the same things that Brian Daboll wants to do in his offense. So I think that fits like a glove. But Jaxson Dart, he's an impressive thrower, and I think he's just got a natural gift. He doesn't have the rocket arm. He's not throwing missiles left and right. He's got a lot of touch. He's got great ability with the layered throws.
I would say an above-average NFL arm, though.
I think he's got a strong arm,
Yeah.
but I'm not like a Josh Allen rocket cannon for an arm. Like that's not the first thing that you say about him. He can make all the deep throws. Look, he led the FBS in throws over 20 yards. So
and 10 yards with 74, yeah.
You know, I mean, he took a lot of shots down the field, but he's got a knack for throwing a very catchable ball. Like I played with a guy in college at Rutgers, Mike McMahon. He threw heaters all day long. He actually split the fingers on a wide receiver because he threw the ball so hard.
Did he really? Wow.
And it was almost like the receiver's like, dude, it's uncatchable because the ball is so hard. He throws a very catchable ball, and I think he's exactly what the Giants needed. Obviously, they need a quarterback for the future, but he's not a guy that they're going to have to come in and play right away. He can mature a little bit. He can learn the ropes a little bit. He's got to learn about going through some progressions, something that he didn't do a whole lot of in college. So I think that's something that he's going to really have to work at. But I think he's a competitor. I think he's the type of quarterback that every team wants to have because he's one of those guys that kind of galvanizes the locker room and brings everybody together. And you know, he's somebody that wins the locker room before he even goes out and wins the football game.
And if Shaun has to run out at some point during the show, folks, we're trying to get Jaxson Dart on a Zoom call. So if Shaun just disappears and runs, he doesn't find this objectionable. At least not so much that he's leaving. He might still find this objectionable. But if he leaves, that's why. Paul, Jaxson Dart, just over 6'2", 223 pounds.
Right. Big
kid, sturdy frame. He's not a runner per se, but he did have 1,500 rushing yards over the course of his college career. Last year, he ran for 495 yards. He has 41 starts. He started 1 year at USC where he played in 6 games, I think started 3 of them, and then he started the last 3 years at Ole Miss. So he has a lot of experience, and he's a pretty darn good athlete, too.
He's tough. He's physical. He's strong. He is not afraid to take it down and run. And quite honestly, he's what you call a football player. Coaches will say about some quarterbacks, they're football players because they're gritty. And they've got that blue-collar work ethic, and they're not afraid to take a hit, and they're not afraid to take a defensive player on when they run downfield. Some guys are looking for that sideline, and they want to take off. You guys know that. Yep. He doesn't do that. He's going to try to make a play. Here's what I love about him the most, though, John. If you look at his career, right, in his 4 years of college football experience, each and every season, His completion percentage went up every year. His yards per attempt passing went up every year.
And he led, by the way, last year, the FBS in yards per attempt.
And his yards per catch, reception, or completion went up every single year. So not just attempts, but completions as well. And lifetime in the NCAA, touchdown to interception ratio of 81-27, which is 3-1, and every coach will drool over a 3-1 ratio right there.
69% completions last year. I'm going to give you 2 quotes about the guy very quickly that I got from Dane Brugler's Beast. In fact, I was with Dane when he asked these questions of this guy at the NFL Combine. I was there when he asked the question. So 2 defenders on the team. J.J. Pegues, who's a defensive tackle. The quote from him about Dart, he's the most competitive guy I've ever seen. That from a defensive player. And then Princely Umanmielen, who's going to be a day 2 pick, likely Pegues a day 3 pick. The quarterbacks at my previous schools kept to themselves or only talked to the offensive guys, but Jaxson connected with everyone on the team. So I think those 2 quotes from guys that play in the trenches on the defensive line are important, Shaun.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes about what kind of guy he is. And, you know, I think one of the great things about Eli, when he came in, number 1 pick overall in the draft, you know, there was a lot of speculation about what kind of kid are we getting with Eli. Like, he refused to play for the Chargers. Is this kid like a spoiled brat? What are we getting? Eli immediately came in, and he was not above anybody. He wanted to be just one of the guys. He wanted to hang out with everybody, and he did that. He spent time with everybody, and I think that's what endeared all the players to Eli. I get the same sense with Jaxson. And I know he's got a relationship with Eli. I know he knows the Manning family. I think he understands the role as a quarterback. Look, you're the face of the franchise and you're the face of the team, but you can't win without everybody in the locker room being behind you and being next to you. So I think he understands that. And to your point, Paul, like, he has started everywhere he's been. He started as a freshman in high school. He started on varsity. And he has been that kind of leader throughout his entire career. So he knows how to get guys together. He knows how to motivate guys. He knows how to bring guys in. And I love that competitive spirit in him. And look, you can go to any football team and you want to know what the quarterback is like, go ask the DBs, because quarterbacks and defensive backs are always jawing at each other in 7-on-7. Because they'll always tell you if they got the best of you that day, like, hey man, we took your money today. Like, they're jawing at you. And then if you throw a couple touchdown passes on them, you're giving it right back to them. So I know Eli had some banter with some of the guys, and you know, that was always something in training camp and in OTAs that, you know, Bruce Arians used to put a dollar bill up in the offensive media room, and if the defensive guys got us that day, they would come in and take the dollar and put it in their defensive meeting room. And then it was kind of like a back and forth, but there's that competition that you get. And I think that tells a lot about a quarterback if he's got that kind of relationship with the defensive guys.
We're in the Hackensack Meridian Hill podcast studio. Keep getting better. And now we welcome back in the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa. Bob, of course, hosted a radio show with former Giants assistant coach Charlie Weiss for a long time. His son is the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss. So, Bob, I know you've talked to Charlie a lot about Jaxson Dart and what he brings to the table. So what have you learned about him in your interactions with Charlie talking about the player?
Well, I think one of the things that Jaxson Dart won a lot of these teams over is what Shaun was talking about. I mean, I know for a fact through Charlie Weiss and via his son that Jaxson Dart is the guy that you want as your face of your franchise because he embraces it. And he also is someone that brings everybody together. Hey, let's face it, with this NIL and the transfer portal, Jaxson Dart was out there for Ole Miss recruiting players from other schools. And people wanted to come play at Ole Miss, which is why they had all these transfers. He was getting on the blower with people. The point that you made about the defensive players, they love Jaxson Dart. Jaxson Dart is a bring everybody together type leader. He's going to handle being in the building and not have this attitude about him. He's a hard worker. He's gotten better and better over the course of time. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, you know, the Giants really reached here, Jaxson Dart going into the first round. Look, it's not a coincidence that the minute the Giants traded to 25, the Rams traded out of 26. The Rams were going to take Jaxson Dart as the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford to be his understudy. McVay loved everything that Jaxson Dart brought to the table. So that should be enough for Giant fans out there who are sitting there saying, oh, why'd they give up this? And why'd they? That's how highly regarded he was by people that understand the game, understand what leadership is, understand what being the quarterback is, because it's more than just playing a position. It's unlike any other position. Shaun knows this. He verbalized it before, and I think he's going to be a really good fit. And, you know, to have Eli Manning in the building, and I know Eli does not get involved in the football stuff, but to have another Ole Miss guy there to just kind of be a steadying hand, I think is going to be great. And then we'll see how this quarterback room winds up shaping out as far as how they go into the season. But right now they got 4 on the roster.
Bob, I think one of the really important things to remember here is that so many first-round quarterbacks, especially when they're drafted higher, they're expected to play right away. They get thrown into the deep end of the pool. The benefit that Dart's going to have is not only does he have great intangibles, great leadership skills, and a terrific demeanor to melt into a locker room, but he doesn't have to play a snap this year. If everything goes right, he's a redshirt. That should be a great advantage to him when he finally gets the opportunity to take over this offense.
Well, Paul, that is true in principle, okay? But Shaun lived it. He knows what it looks like. I mean, it depends on how the season's going. If the Giants are a sub-500 team more than halfway through and it looks like their prospects of making the playoffs aren't looking good, you know what the cry is going to be.
Yeah,
just like when the Giants were 5-4 in Eli's rookie season, but they had suffered. I think Strahan got hurt. They had a whole bunch of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and the feeling was, well, our chances of really doing anything are pretty limited because we got all these defensive guys hurt and out for the year. Now it's time to get the kid in there. So Jaxson Dart may get a redshirt year. It really depends on how the team performs. If the team is in the playoff mix, he'll get that true redshirt year.
Bob, I want to ask you about that offense because I know Charlie Weiss talks a lot about the scheme down there. And there are a lot of college elements to that offense with, you know, they set a lot of things up for the quarterback. They make the decisions easy. But if you listen to the thing we did with Phil Simms on the John Soto podcast the other day, he said, look, it's a little bit more than that. And I think people saw some West Coast elements get put into that offense towards the end of the year. So give me the inside scoop from Charlie, from his son, how that offense that he operated at Ole Miss will help translate to the National Football League.
It's a pro-style offense. I mean, yes, they incorporate other things into it to fit into the college game, but they're running a pro-style offense. There's a lot of elements to the pro game that are in there because Charlie Weiss Jr. is using a lot of the principles that he learned from his father as far as the offense. And Lane Kiffin has been in the National Football League. So it's not like it's one of these Chip Kelly, you know, exotic, wide open, you know, all this fast break stuff. There's a lot of elements to the pro game in that. And, you know, before you interviewed Phil Simms yesterday, before that awesome sponsors breakfast happened, you know, Phil Simms, you know, he likes to go on these rants. You can't stop him.
No, not
like,
Phil.
And he's like, I can't believe these people are talking about it's not a pro offense. Heck yeah, it's a pro offense. And he like gave me all the reasons why. And he's like, that's one of the few offenses in college football that actually does look like a pro offense. So I don't think there'll be any issues with that. Dable obviously had success mentoring Josh Allen as a young player. He'll know what to do. And hey, look, if you're a Giants fan right now, you have to be ecstatic. I'm ecstatic.
100%.
You know, and you didn't lose your first-round draft pick next year. I know you lost a third and a second, and they do have another third-round pick. But if you got the guy, I mean, how many of those third-round picks actually pan out on average? I mean, even second-round picks don't always pan out. But if this guy is going to turn out to be what you think he can be, heck, you'd give that up every day of the week.
No doubt about it. And Bob, I think you're spot on right now. If you're a Giants fan right now, if you're listening, if you stayed up and you stayed with us. We appreciate you. But the fact that we just got Abdul Carter and now Jaxson Dart all in the first round, and we didn't have to give up a future first-round pick to do any of that, I mean, that's a double win right there. And impact players for the next 4 to 5 years on both sides of the ball. And by trading back up into the first round, we're talking about, do they play him in the first year? Does he redshirt? By getting him in the first round, you sign him to a 5-year contract. So if you got him in the second round, it would just be a 4-year contract. So you can afford to not play him in that first year. So there is value in trading back into the first round and getting him from that standpoint. But I think with the offense and what you're talking about, scheme, I just want to go back to Brian Daboll was with the Patriots for a long time, won a bunch of Super Bowl rings with the Patriots. Then he went to Alabama and was the offensive coordinator, won a national championship there in the college game. And he pilfered a lot of that college scheme, that style, the RPO, the quarterback design runs and all that stuff. He pilfered a lot of that, brought that with him to Buffalo, used that with Josh Allen. And that's some of the similar stuff that we're talking about that that Jaxson Dart was doing down with Lane Kiffin and with Charlie Weiss Jr. in Ole Miss. So, I think Brian Daboll can adapt his offense to all of those things because he's already been doing it. He has already done it and he's already seen it. So I think this is a great fit on both sides of it for Jaxson, for Daboll. And I think, to your point, Bob, about Jaxson Dart, the type of guy he is, he's the type of guy that's gonna step up to the podium, win, lose, or draw, and he's gonna handle himself accordingly, which is not easy to do here in New York.
Yeah, he's going to be a pro, and I think people are going to recognize that right out of the gate. There's not going to be shenanigans with him. He's these old Parcells guys like Weiss and all these guys, first in the building, last one out. He's that guy. So I think you're getting what you needed to get at this point in time, and you got Russell Wilson as your starter. We'll see what happens as far as the backup quarterback situation is concerned moving forward. And then you have DeVito, who's still a developmental player who they really like. And they'll let it all sort itself out. But, if you take one of these quarterbacks at 3, he's got to play. When you take him where you took him and you sign Russell Wilson, you can really slow the roll, and they could be successful as a team with Russell Wilson at quarterback and what they've done to become potentially a dynamic defense. So I think if you're a Giants fan, and I've been getting texts all night, Charlie Weiss is over the moon. He wanted to see Jaxson Dart go to the Giants. He really believed that the Giants would be a great fit for Jaxson Dart. And the text I'm getting, from people who are not Giants fans, these are people from around the league, are like, damn, they did well. They did really well. And can't wait for it to get started. By the way, can I go back to my first time I came on with you guys?
Yeah, please. What do you got?
I gave the Thibodeau thing about why they should pick up the 5th-year option, in my opinion, and literally 1 minute later, Joe Shane and his pressers announced that they were picking it up. I had no inside intel, but if you just think about it logically, it makes all the sense in the world because his number is – he hasn't been to a Pro Bowl, so his 5th-year option number is – what is it, $15 million?
Yeah, about 14 and a half. You're right, Bob.
Yeah.
Very reasonable.
Or I think it's 14.75 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that's nothing in this, especially because we know this. The salary cap is going to go up, this 10% or whatever, for the next couple of years because of all these games being put on Christmas, and they're selling games to Amazon and Netflix and all this other stuff, and the growth of the game internationally, the cap's going to keep going up. So a Kayvon Thibodeau at $14.7 million on a 5th-year option is going to be a bargain. And if he produces, we'll worry about that problem when you get to it as far as whether you're going to give him a second contract.
Bob, always a pleasure, my friend. Good talking to you. And if you want, we're going live tomorrow after the pick the Giants have left at 65. You're more than welcome to call in if you want, buddy.
Bring it.
All right, I'll let you know if I'm available. I got a golf tournament to work.
All right, good luck.
Bob will be on the 19th green, baby. All right, Bobby, talk to you later, my friend.
BP, always ahead of the curve.
That's a
You
voice
got
of the
it, man.
Giants, Bob Papa, joining us on the Giants Draft Reaction Show, brought to you by Crestron and the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Let's go to the phones. We had a couple other picks come in, by the way. James Pierce Jr. to the Falcons, Malachi Starks to the Ravens to go with Kyle Hamilton. Lions took Tyleek Williams, the big defensive tackle out of Ohio State. So basically all the targets that the Giants still had that 34th pick. And Sean, you better go now. They
Right.
require you.
All right, boys.
So
I'll be back in a flash.
have fun. Ask some good questions
I'm
of
gonna throw
Mr.
some-
Dart. We look forward to
Enjoy.
that.
I'm gonna go throw some darts.
Yes, please enjoy. Josh Connolly to the Commanders to go with Laramie Tunsil, bookend tackles
Yeah.
for Jaden Daniels. Happy joy. And then Maxwell Hairston, the quarterback out of Kentucky, to the Buffalo Bills. All right, let's go to the phones at 201-939-4513. Kyle in New Jersey is up first here. Kyle, what's going on?
Hi. I just don't think that the Giants should have drafted Jaxson Dart. I honestly think Shedeur Sanders was the right choice.
Why?
Well, he had higher completion percentage. He also had a 3-to-1 TD to interception ratio. He threw for almost the same amount of yards as Jaxson Dart. And honestly, like, he started to build a relationship with Malik Neighbors. I just think that he would have been a better quarterback for the Giants.
No, Kyle, and I got you. Fair opinion. Other people, I'm sure, think the same thing. I will throw a couple things to rebut a couple of your points. I think Shedeur Sanders and Jaxson Dart were very close in terms of how a lot of teams viewed them. So I'm sure there are people around the league that also thought like you do, and that's fine. But Shedeur Sanders threw about 20% of his passes, I think, were screen passes, which artificially boosted his completion percentage a little bit, and it was still only slightly above what Jaxson Dart was at 69% last year.
That's right.
And Dart had more downfield completions than Sanders did. And Dart also played against much tougher competition in the SEC than Sanders did playing in the Big 12. So those would be my rebuttals to your point, though I understand your opinion, and I'm sure other Giant fans feel that way too. That's fine. The Giants obviously prefer Dart.
A sturdier build and more mobility as well.
Yeah, I think he's a slightly more mobile player. I agree with that. I think Dart probably is a little bit of a better arm, but it's comparable, I would say.
Close.
Yeah. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the phones and say what's up to EJ in Patterson. EJ, you're on Giants Draft Reaction. How are you?
How's it going over here, guys?
We're great, man. What's going on?
Well, if I could take a quick shout out to thank everybody at the MetLife Stadium. I actually just got out of the draft party with you guys.
Nice.
I drove all the way from Rhode Island to attend it with my brother and family out there. So really, really excited. Just want to give a shout out to all the people who helped out in the hospital.
You had a good time?
There.
It was fun?
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Great.
Got to hang out with Brandon London up there. I know that Bob Papa hangs out with him too. So a lot of fun. Thank you guys. Just wanted to shout out.
But pull off to the side of the road if you're going to be talking to us on the phone, please. Don't get yourself in trouble.
Well, you know, Paul, there are all these things in cars now where you can get the phone call into the car, so you don't have to hold the phone. I know that might be beyond your technical capabilities, but
I
that does
have one of
actually
those,
exist.
and I use it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Safe travels.
All right, EJ, what do you got for us on the pick?
I apologize if anybody else said this beforehand. Like I said, I
No,
just
that's
got back
okay.
home.
You're
I wanted
good.
to jump in here with you
Yeah.
guys. But so kind of going off of the last two callers, I won't say that statistically I would have preferred Shedeur Sanders. I'm really happy with the Jaxson Dart pick. But I think that Shedeur just would have brought a type of just grit, a type of attitude. Like a lot of people obviously were not a fan of, and we're seeing that nobody's wanting to pick that up. And you can kind of understand why they don't want to do that. But I just think that I feel like we've had a meh culture recently in the last few years that if he would have been picked up and he would have came in with the, like, I'm the new guy in the room with just a finesse and with a type of just, again, attitude about him, I just think that it would have like invigorated everybody else and just been like, yeah, we are the guys to be. Obviously in such a stacked NFC East conference that we have, or division, excuse me, I just feel like that could have been like something to just kind of put us over the edge, something to kind of look forward to, although I am very happy with the Jaxson Dart pick.
I appreciate the call, and look, based on everything I've heard about Jaxson Dart is that he blew it out of the water in all of his interviews.
Yes.
And this is, if you guys listen to our draft content on the Giants Huddle podcast, this is something that guests have said to me over the course of the last month. So this is not me saying it, and that he has really done a good job in these interviews with his personality. I talked about how his defensive players on his team at Ole Miss really respect him as a tough player and a leader. This is a guy that will run, put his shoulder down, and try to run over dudes.
Talk about grit. He's
Correct.
got it.
Yeah.
He is a blood and guts guy,
And by the way,
a blue-collar quarterback.
Shedeur Sanders is a tough player, too. He took $1 million hits this year, kept
No
getting
doubt.
back up. But
No doubt.
so was Jaxson Dart.
And Dart is the kind of guy who, as you say, he's going to lay the pain on a defensive player on occasion when he takes off. That's not Shedeur Sanders.
So you're telling me we're not going to stop having the starting quarterback please slide when you're scrambling conversation talks that we've had for the last 5
I don't
years?
know about his baseball skills, but we will find out if he's a slider once he.
He actually was a high school baseball player.
See, that's something I did not know.
Yes, I believe he was. I will double check.
Even
that,
though
but
he
I'm
was
pretty
my
sure he
favorite
was.
quarterback in the draft, I did not know that.
Yes, second favorite quarterback in the draft, right?
Well, we also disqualified Ward because
Well, I know,
everybody knew
but he was
going
still a
first.
quarterback in the draft.
Yes.
Though. Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go, Jamie in New York. Jamie, what's going on?
Hey, how are you guys? How
We're
you
good,
doing?
man. How are you?
Good, thanks. So I was just, I was kind of expecting him to go with Milroe. As one of you guys said, Dart is a guy who can lay down hits on the defense, but I think Milroe would have been more of a project guy for Dable, because we know how good he is with working with quarterbacks. And I just think, his running skills, I think, are the best in the draft. And I just want to know what you guys think about that. Passing up on Milroe as a project guy for Dable to work with, and then just taking Dart instead.
You can take this one if you want, Paul.
Milroe has two advantages over Dart. One is he's got the best, quickest, fastest legs of any quarterback in this draft. Okay? That he has.
And he probably has a better arm than Dart,
And that's
too.
number 2.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the better long ball than probably anybody else in the draft in terms of being able to unleash it and throw the darn thing 65 to 70 yards. Every other box, Jaxson Dart checks over Milroe. It's really quite that simple. It's kind of a one-sided argument.
So you don't think Milroe would have been since we have Wilson and we have Winston and Russell, that he would have been a project guy to work with for Dable for a few years?
Well, you must understand something, and it's pretty unanimous when you talk to anybody around the league, that Dart is not a just-add-water quarterback who you would expect him to start week 1.
Dart is also a developmental quarterback, but he's
Correct.
further along as a passer than Milroe is.
He is possibly a year away from being ready to play in the pros.
Rather than 2.
Rather than 2.
Right.
Because we've had guests on this program who have said Milroe is going to be at least a 2-year working project.
And I think that's what I had Chris Sims on the John Soto podcast, and that's how we put it, that he saw Dart as kind of a 1-year guy. And I think he actually put Sanders in that category too. And he put Milroe into a 2-year project, guys that you want to let marinate a little bit and figure things out. Because look, as much as Phil Sims loves the Ole Miss stuff as a pro offense, there is a lot of program stuff in there.
Yes, there is.
Where you set up plays with one specific guy to get open and you try to get him the football. That's in there when you watch Ole Miss's offense. So it isn't as much of that full field. He flashes it. He shows at point that he can make those full field reels. He just doesn't have to make them consistently every play. And I learned this talking to Kurt Warner last year when I was asking him about Jaden Daniels. I said, Kurt, I watched Jaden Daniels. There's a million slot fades. He's not throwing the ball over the middle. And he said to me on the John Soto podcast, John, don't blame a quarterback for not doing something when you don't know if he's asked to do it or not. And we don't know what Jaxson Dart was asked to do. So if he's not being asked to make full field reads, and we don't see that all the time, and we only see it in spurts, maybe when he's asked to do more in a different offense on the pro level, he's going to be able to do it very quickly. But there is going to be, and appreciate the call, there is going to be a developmental process with him too, even though it's not maybe as long of a process as Milroe would
Now,
be.
as a footnote, and to the caller, and I'm not in the business of promoting other people's programs, but the John Gruden quarterback school, which he has with all of the quarterback prospects going into the draft, his show with Jaxson Dart may have been the most impressive of all of the quarterback shows that were taped over the last couple of months. Go back and watch that, because you know what you were just talking about a second ago, about plays that maybe didn't go right and you need to find out why? That's what Gruden did. And Gruden went deep.
I have not watched that yet. I'm going to watch it tomorrow morning.
He goes deep with Dart about what did you see? What are you doing? What do you want to do when this, and this happens? And Dart blew Gruden away. And you will be blown away. If you watch that program, you will understand why Jaxson Dart is a whole nother level ahead.
All right, final call of the show is Keen in New Jersey. Keen, what's going on?
Hey, John. Thanks for taking my call.
What's up?
I want to give you a shout-out because I listen to your draft podcast every day. And
Thank
you
you.
have great guests and great conversations, and it helps fans like me learn a lot. 2 quick questions. One, why do you think there's a big discrepancy, and how come, NFL Network guys, they think Jaxson Dart's more of like a day 2 or even day 3 pick? And why do you think pro scouts are different, and why the Giants selected him first round? And second question, quickly, there were a lot of rumors yesterday that the Giants were going to trade up for Jaxson Dart. Do you think something got leaked, or how the Giants are usually, keep cards close to the vest and everything? So just wanted your thoughts on how this leaked out and how come the news got out that we were really interested in Dart.
Yeah, Keen, good question. I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know where that came from. It could have came from the agent side, too, if, those conversations happen. Who knows? There's really no idea. No, I do know Brian Dable and Joe Shane aren't going telling people what they're going to do. So I'm not sure where that came from. But, maybe they were having early conversations about moving up for a player, and they told the team what player it was, and that team said, there's a million different ways these things can get out there at times. So there's really no way to know. What was his first question?
Well, he was saying that some of the TV people
that's right.
thought that Dart was a second or third day pick.
I don't think anyone said third day.
I never heard that.
Well, I think day 2 pick.
Yeah, but third
round
day?
2. No,
I never
third day,
heard
no.
that.
And look, here's the bottom line, guys. We don't know where the Giants had Dart on their board, but we talked about how in this draft class, and Tony Pauline said on our WFAN show, there was a team in the league that just had 12 first-round grades in this class.
Mm-hmm.
So you're picking at pick 15 or later. You're already drafting guys with second-round grades. So maybe the Giants had a first-round grade on them. Maybe the Giants had a second-round grade on them. I don't know the answer to that. They're not. Maybe they did in the press conference. We weren't there. But I doubt they're going to tell you what round grade they had on the player. But there's a possibility the Giants had a second-round grade on him. But in order to get him, because a bunch of second-round graded players are going off the board in the second half of the first round because of the nature of the draft class itself, you have to move up and get the player. So in the quarterbacks, you always have to elevate the value because teams are going to go after those players, and you don't want them to get taken out from underneath you. As Bob Papa pointed out, there was a good chance the Rams could be looking for a backup to Stafford at the end of the first round. So these are all the things you had to consider when you're looking at a quarterback.
Well, you could also worry about Cleveland possibly trying to trade back into the bottom of the first round. And Joe Shane...
Or just picking him at 33.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, in the media availability that Joe Shane just had earlier tonight, after they made the first pick of Abdul Carter, he flat out told the media, we had calls about moving up and moving down, and people asked him about a quarterback and what about the second round. And he said, hey, we are close enough to the bottom of the first round where, maybe we could do something there.
And they said that...
this was obvious.
This shouldn't be a surprise given he was the second quarterback taken, obviously. But apparently, Joe Shane did say during his press conference today that Dart was the second quarterback on their board.
Right.
Which makes sense, because why would you pick the third quarterback on your board if one of the ones have been taken already? So, he was their next guy. They wanted to try to find a quarterback that they could believe in and move forward with. And you do what you can to get that player if you believe in him. And that's what the Giants did.
I think ultimately the bottom line for the Giants is that they're feeling really good about the two guys they're coming away with tonight.
And now tomorrow is going to be a little less exciting. There's only going to be one pick at 65, so we're going to have to wait a little bit. So we spent all this time in the last 3 weeks talking about what the Giants do at 34, and, well, we kind of talked about what they did with the 34th pick, just not who they picked at 34.
It's not going to happen.
So, but we do have a pick tomorrow. The Giants will select once at 65, and then again at the top of the fourth round
105.
At pick 105.
Yes.
So those are the Giants' next 2 picks. We'll be with you tomorrow after the Giants select, right when the Giants select at pick 65. That's all we have in terms of time for the Giants Draft Review Show, brought to you by Crestron from the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. For Paul Dottino, for Shaun O'Hara, I am John Schmeelk. Thank you so much for being with us today, and enjoy your night. Draft season, first round reaction with Tony and I will post up late tonight or early tomorrow morning, probably late tonight if you want to check that out. We had our Abdul Carter review show. You could check that out as well. So make sure you tune into all that content we have coming your way. And I know our crack production staff is coming up with a lot of really cool videos and stuff like that for our social programs for both Carter and Dart. So make sure you guys go check that out as well on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Reels, Instagram, all those places where you find social media stuff. Paul's the social media expert. I should have let him list all the platforms, not me. But make sure you check all that out. Enjoy your night, Giant fans. Hopefully you have your franchise quarterback. Hopefully you have your franchise pass rusher. I imagine the guys will be here either tomorrow or the next day, and we'll get to meet them in person. That'll be a lot of fun. Thanks for being with us. Get out of here, Sean. We're done. We don't need you anymore. You abandoned us. Bye. We'll see you next time and tomorrow on the Giants Draft Review Show.
Enjoy.
Adios.